Good evening and welcome to the Costa Mesa City Council meeting for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019. At this time, I would like to have the, that's closed session. I'm going to introduce the Clover Choir from St. John the Baptist. It's their chamber singers, and they will perform the national anthem as well as lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And we'll follow that by a moment of solemn expression from Pastor Jordan Hansen of Newport Mesa Church in Costa Mesa. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streamed. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free? And the hope of the brave.
Beautiful.
Let's bow our heads. Father, we thank you for the opportunity. We truly thank you for the opportunity to serve people. And I just pray that you would give us wisdom to do that well tonight as we discuss, as we process, as we think about how best we can serve people and to love people. And even when we disagree, I just pray that you would help us treat each other with respect and dignity and help us accomplish a lot. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Let the record reflect that all council is present.
And Ms. Barlow, any closed session report?
No reportable action was taken in closed session this evening, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We have two presentations tonight. The first presentation is an Arbor Day proclamation in preparation for our Arbor Day activities in the spring. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas the city of Costa Mesa has long had a commitment to maintaining our urban forest. And on January 25th, 2019, set as a city council priority the city's rededication to our urban forest and to attaining Tree City USA status. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, both formally and informally, and whereas trees can cut heating and cooling costs, moderate temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, capture carbon, and provide habitat for wildlife, whereas trees in our city increase property values, beautify our community, enhance the economic vitality of business areas. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Katrina Foley of the City of Costa Mesa, do hereby proclaim April 24th, 2020 to be Arbor Day in the city of Costa Mesa, and call upon Costa Mesans to celebrate this day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, presented this third day of December. So we, our council, one of our council priorities in our, from our last year's priority session is, as indicated, to have get back to Tree City USA status. We had fallen out, and so we're going to be planting lots of trees this coming year and certainly leading up to Arbor Day. We hope you will all join us and make a commitment to plant a tree in the next few months. Next item is the Costa Mesa Minute.
Hello again, Costa Mesa. I'm Dane Bora, and this is your special City Council edition of the Costa Mesa Minute. Here's a quick look at some upcoming events and activities coming to Costa Mesa this holiday season. The 40th annual production of A Christmas Carol, starring Hal Landon as Scrooge, is currently on stage at South Coast Repertory through Christmas Eve. Estancia High School production drama takes the stage this weekend with their production of It's a Wonderful Life in the Barbara Van Holt Theater on campus. Polar Express returns to Estancia Park on Saturday, courtesy of L3 Real Estate, and includes a variety of free, family-friendly activities. The OC Taco Festival celebrates a universal love of tacos and taco culture this Saturday at the OC Marketplace at the OC Fair and Event Center. There is snow in the forecast for Balearic Park the following weekend as Holiday Snowland, hosted by Torelli Real Estate, returns with 40 tons of snow. Everybody's favorite Costa Mesa holiday tradition returns to the front lawn of City Hall December 13th through the 22nd with all of your Snoopy House favorites like free photos with Santa, free cider, free train rides, and more. The Parks and Community Services Department is hosting Movie Night in the Park on Friday, December 13th, featuring the holiday classic, Elf. You are invited to help restore native plants in Fairview Park at the once-monthly Fairview Park Restoration event on Saturday, December 14th. The next community bike ride, hosted by Councilmember Arliss Reynolds, takes place on Sunday, December 15th. Join your neighbors to deliver cookies by bike to Costa Mesa police officers and firefighters. Santa Claus is coming to the Costa Mesa Senior Center to spread some holiday cheer on Thursday, December 19th at this always fun and always well-attended annual event. Experience Southern California's largest winter festival when Winterfest OC returns to the OC Fair and Event Center December 19th through January 5th. And the Orange County Model Engineers invite you to ride the trains and take photos with Santa December 21st and 22nd. As always, there's plenty going on here in Costa Mesa. Here's hoping you have a chance to experience some of it.
Lots of fun holiday activities. Thank you, Mr. Bora. At this time will be time in the meeting for public comment. If you would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda, you can come to one of the two podiums and you'll be given the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. And if you're so willing, you can fill out a green card so we can get your contact information, but it's not required. Ms. Martin.
Flo Martin. I was reading through the Costa Mesa Senior Center monthly publication called The Chronicle last night, and I came across a little blurb announcing or letting folks know that they need to bring their own mugs and their own coffee cups because styrofoam is now banned in all city facilities, and I want to say thank you for that.
You're welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Tonight's Dog Park Series chapter is entitled Administration. Up until 3 years ago, the dog park was administered by the Costa Mesa Bark Park Foundation, pursuant to a letter of understanding between the volunteer group and the city. Any dog park changes would have to be reviewed by the Parks Commissioners in collaboration with staff and maintenance personnel at properly agendized Parks Commission hearings, with notice given to the dog park public via bulletin boards in the dog park. Today we have an Animal Services Committee that was created primarily to deal with serious animal shelter issues. And in that regard, they appear to have done an exemplary job. But in no way are they representative of the best interests of the dog park people at large in the dog park. And yet control over the dog park has been vested in a tiny group of animal shelter activists in Conference Room 3A. Case in point, they are on a path to convert the dog park into an agility dog park, in whole or in part, which has never been done before in Southern California. A young boy has been given the green light to raise $5,000 to add agility equipment into the dog park, bypassing the parks commissioners and the dog park community. In the more than 10 years I was associated with the old foundation, including 1 year as one of their directors, this matter never entered into the conversation, not once. Those agility people are in a different world. They are into their dogs like you would not believe. They have clubs, networks, competition events, agility schools, agility trainers, and on and on and on. What they are missing is a fenced-in park. Very few of our dog park people are in that world. I personally never met one, not once. Had we wanted to pursue this matter, we had the money to do so. It would have been properly agendized at a formal Parks Commission hearing with proper notice to the public. Tonight, you need to understand that there are reasons why no dog parks in Southern California have any of this apparatus in any of the dog parks. As to what those reasons are, this is not the time or the place. The place needs to be before the Parks Commissioners, with proper outreach to the dog park community. The Animal Services Committee activities need to be limited to just the purpose for which the committee was created, the shelter, nothing more. I have here what I feel is an illuminating example of the old system in action, with the Parks Commissioners of years ago doing incredibly good work. But I can't talk fast enough to cover it. So I'll email each of you a 4-minute version of this presentation. I'd appreciate it if you could read it. For you speed readers up there, it shouldn't take you more than a minute. These two issues addressed tonight. First, how the dog park is administered, and second, the agility equipment matter, are each in their own right, I hate to say it, each game changers for me. Thank you and good night.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Jody Rabanis, and I'm graduated from Costa Mesa High School a long time ago, and soon to be a Costa Mesa resident again. I come to you, and it seems, although my topic's not on the agenda, it seems that many other agenda items have alluded to what I'm talking about. You had Pastor Jordan Hansen talk about how important service is in your roles. And then Mayor Foley, you talked about April 24th, 2020 being Arbor Day. Well, I bring greetings to you today. Today is International December 3rd Dine-In Day. And the importance of today is for families to spend time together. And so much that you do promotes strong families in this wonderful community. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know you know the importance of family, but it's important to just bring that message home. Thank you for your service, and to continue to make environments that promote healthy families in this wonderful community. By the way, I gave you a sticker that says today's December 3rd, and I put my card in there too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to just remind everyone, and I know you don't know this, but please don't touch the microphone because it causes it to be really fuzzy. Sorry. Okay.
Well, I actually hate coming here to speak, but, you compel me to do so, so here I am. A little upset about some of the things that have been going on in the city, specifically what's happened with Chief Sharpneck. Chief Sharpneck gave more years to this city than some of you have been alive. Let that sink in. Let it sink in, because it's important. Many of us have seen the memos and communications that went around, and we can put two and two together. Chief Sharpneck did not need harassing and bullying emails added to his day job. Some of you stood idly by and watched as you allowed others to collude, yes, collude, to ruin the career of a 26-year servant to our community, and whose undoing was because he had the integrity and courage to stand up for our police department and the city's public safety needs. And for all the injustices that some of you claim to fight against, when intimidation and bullying is happening under your nose, you remain silent and do nothing. That's shameful. That is shameful. So now your constituents pay the price for your irresponsibility with both the loss of a good police chief and additional legal costs associated with the lawsuit. I'd like to thank Chief Sharpnick for his years, decades of service to Costa Mesa. At least many residents recognize his leadership skills and appreciate that he stuck his neck out and had the courage to stand up for what's right despite the risk and consequences. Some of you could have learned an important lesson from him about leadership.
Next speaker.
In keeping with the last speaker, I'd also like to thank Chief Sharpnick. The events that happened at Estancia High School today and the culminating arrest were obviously from his training, happened on his watch with his people. And in keeping with that, I'd like to read the facts that were submitted in his claim regarding what's going on, and that his retirement probably was not as voluntary as some would like to think. Directly from a document filed for the claim with the city, the facts section state, Chief Sharpnick has been employed with the city of Costa Mesa for approximately 26 years, having risen through the ranks and promoted from officer to chief of police. He has an exemplary employment history with no discipline. However, in and about late May, June 2019, when he complained to the city about the city's improper interference into the affairs of the city police department and about the budget process, the city, number one, discriminated and retaliated against Chief Sharpnick and tried to force him out on leave due to a perceived disability. Number two, they discriminated and retaliated against him in violation of Labor Code 1102.5. in response to his disclosure of statutory violations. Most recently, on Friday, October 18, 2019, the city ordered Chief Sharpnick to return to the city after hours, breached the terms of his offer of employment by improperly threatening to terminate him and threatening him with retaliatory investigation in order to manufacture entirely non-existent cause in an attempt to force him to immediately retire and or to force him out on immediate leave. On October 28, 2019, Chief Sharpnick informed the city he was ready and willing and able to return to work. The city informed him that they did not want him to do so, and if he did, he would be investigated. When Chief Sharpnick complained that the city was violating the Section 3304C of the Government Code, the city threatened yet another retaliatory action. This not only bodes badly for the city, it bodes badly for the officers that are out there every day putting their life on the line. We've had somewhere in the area of 6 or 7 chiefs in the last 10 years. Chief Sharpnick was still young, he had a lot to offer, and to treat him in this manner is, to share the words of the other speaker, shameful, and you all have part and parcel of it.
Next speaker, please.
Well, back to the dog park. So nobody has contacted me. I haven't spoken to anybody, which I would like to. Now Snoopy house is up, and the grass is going to get trashed. Can we please make sure that we get grass at the dog park before you fix the grass in front of City Hall next month? Or can we truly move forward? We really don't need the creme de la creme at the dog park. We just need a suitable dog park. Grass, water ball, shade for the people visiting it, and a little bit of comforts, a couple of trash cans. That shouldn't be such a big expenditure out of the city's budget. I mean, can we please just try to move in the right direction? I mean, you guys are handling a lot of stuff. Staff perhaps is doing a good job on this, I'm not sure. I would really, truly like somebody to contact me, as I've offered my services free of charge. I'm willing to do it. I've got the equipment, I've got the knowledge, and I can help. Let's get the dog park. It's the most popular park in the entire city, the mostly used park in this city, yet it's the most degraded park in this city. And we really don't need another litigation on this. You're maintaining something that's hazardous to the public. We don't need to go there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
So, well, happy Thanksgiving. I'm still on Thanksgiving. It was a good Thanksgiving, and there's a lot of good things around town to be grateful for. And I just want to say, coming over here tonight, I love all the lights going up. It's a great time of year. That's the good, the bad. There's also the bad and the ugly. Okay, and also I'm grateful for, we have a majority council that I think really cares about the city, and there's a good vibe going on. I think we have a congressman in Washington that actually cares about the constituents. Hallelujah. And I think we have Assemblyman Cotty Petrie Norris up in Sacramento that's actually getting things done, and I really appreciate it. Something to be thankful for. Okay. Then, I think, I'm kind of wasting time. Okay, so here you go. What a country. In the mail today, or no, this is Friday. I get a notice of a public hearing, I call it the Slither Report, when Willa tries to slide something through. I want everyone in Costa Mesa to drive by 413 20th Street, East 20th Street, and you tell me if that house is okay in that neighborhood, and how in the hell is he allowed to put 3 structures on that lot with no driveway going back like all the other lots? How is he getting away with that? Well, we know how that happens. And this, now they want to put the garage, they want to make the garage a 3-car garage. It was supposed to be a storage part, and now it's going from a 700 square foot, which is the allowed a lot, to, they want to add 296 square feet. Well, that would make a perfect recreation room, or you know what goes on around town with, they knock out the walls and then the billiard tables go in. It would make a perfect sober living house. I'm not saying that's what would happen, but I'm sick of people turning their garages. There's not enough parking on that street as it is. Okay. And then in the same, this is only in America, right? And then I get a letter from Melania Trump, and then I get a letter from, something from Congressman Ruda, and it's just, you know, what a country. There's a lot to be grateful for. But there's one more thing, real fast. I saw something, I read in the paper that the life expectancy in the United States is going down. And the reason it's going down, the first time in history, is the age group between 17 and 34. Can I just please finish?
30 seconds.
Okay. It's going down because of suicide, opioids, and et cetera, gun violence. There's something to be thinking about. If you have young people in your life, I'm wearing my Be Kind t-shirt tonight. You don't know what's going on in other people's lives. Everything might look hunky-dory, but if you have a young person in your life and you think maybe they're a little off, or just ask them to go for coffee or get away from the family for a while. I think the kids need a little extra attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to echo some of the previous speakers about Chief Sharpneck. I think I would like to thank him for his service to this community. And I think that, as I've previously mentioned, I think he was not treated very well. He brought concerns to the council during the budgeting about the things that he believed that his department needed in order to have his officers remain safe, and as well as the community. So I think that you really have to ask yourself, why have we had so many police chiefs in the last 10 years, as one of the other speakers mentioned? You could blame it on the previous council, which is what some of you did. But now then, this one is on your dime. So I think you better reconsider how you treat our chief of police in the future. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Robin Leffler, Costa Mesa resident, and a big fan of our police department. I would concur with the speakers that have mentioned the situation with Chief Sharpneck, and I'm still very proud to call him chief because I think he did an exemplary job. I was disappointed when I saw his letter and saw that equipment that he had asked for the police department that was needed for them to do their job safely and to protect us as well as they could the city council was not providing it. There was not being, the budget money for it was not being released. And I thought that was just sad. And what I thought too is, I think the speaker before kind of made the same point. It reminds me of other city councils that really didn't like our police department. Jim and Steve did not like our police department. They did similar things. And the actions of this city council and the way that the police chief the police department had been kept from getting stuff they need, and now how the reputation of the police chief is being undermined. I don't know what to call it. It's just sad.
Okay, we will have no more public speakers at this time. Council member reports, comments, and suggestions. Council member Marr.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Normally, I come in with a laundry list of report outs of what I was up to over the last couple of weeks, but I just enjoyed a week with my family. It was kind of great. I want to say thank you to the leadership of Captain Glass and the Costa Mesa Police Department for the quick response today. I'm sure some of my colleagues who graduated from Estancia will speak more about that. I had the opportunity with Mayor Pro Tem Stevens and Councilmember Chavez to attend the Thanksgiving dinner that was held at the Bridge Shelter, and just it was a really incredible event, and I'm really glad I had the opportunity to go. Especially around the holidays, meet with folks who are having some real struggles, hear some incredible stories of overcoming challenges, of folks who are finding housing, who are actively out in the community working every day. It was a really incredible opportunity to spend some time with them and spend some time at the Bridge Shelter. And I had one other comment. Just in terms of the numbers of emails we've been receiving about small cell in particular, I think there's a little bit of a misconception about what is going on right now. As a result of dramatic FCC changes, as a result of litigation that happened in San Francisco related to small cell, we are publishing guidelines that allow us to regulate what happens with carriers moving into the future. We are not rolling out a 5G plan. We are not picking locations to plant antennas. And we are not aggressively pursuing how we might deploy more 5G in the city, all of which I have heard in various venues across the city. We are merely tightening our ordinance and making sure that we do have the ability to regulate to the best of our ability as a city. And so if you have any more questions about that, I've met with a number of folks. I'm happy to keep meeting with people and at least explain our process and kind of how we got here. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Mansour.
So I would just like to express thanks to a lot of members of the public for your prayers and support. As some of you may know, my 5-year-old daughter has been in the hospital for the past few days, and she had some major pain in her stomach for a few days, and so she's at Chalk Hospital. And this outpouring of prayer and support is greatly appreciated. And it just shows you what's important in life. It's definitely, has its impacts and takes its toll, especially on me, but my wife especially. And so it means a lot. She is doing better. They've ruled out anything major. She's probably, it's probably a virus that has to just run its course. But to see a 5-year-old in such pain and to spend the night there and listen and to hear the cries of all the children that are there and just all the things that they're going through. And I just want to say that Children's Hospital Orange County, the staff there is just incredible. They're just incredible people. And so that's it. Thank you. I'm very grateful. I think we have one more meeting, but just in case, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you. Can I give you a hug now? Councilmember Guinness.
Okay, I would like to second the thanks to the Costa Mesa Police Department for their speedy response to the threat, to their speedy investigation so that the perpetrators were quickly rounded up and we were able to, and they were able to determine quickly before a lot of hysteria took hold that it was an empty threat, and thank heaven for that, and that the folks are in custody, and we're very grateful for that. There has been a lot of talk about the police budget, and we have several accounts that we call our internal service accounts or our 600 accounts. And what we tend to do with the budgets, when we have our budget sessions, our study session and our discussions, we just put money into those accounts, but we don't typically really think too much about what's in there. We'll have a discussion, yeah, we want to buy our fire truck and mobile command vehicle, which we, in theory, put money into the accounts to budget for. But I think we tend to, in our budgetary process, treat those like black holes, as opposed to our capital fund, where we have a very defined 7-year plan, 1-year capital improvement budget. And so in the future, I would appreciate it if we could actually have called out what we would anticipate. And I know for, in particular, the self-insurance fund, there's a lot of variables and things happen that are unexpected, but they tend to be sort of, as I said, black holes, and it would be very helpful if we actually could look at them in a little more detail so that we don't run into this problem where we thought there was money there to build a mobile command center or to buy a mobile command center, but it's not there. We thought there was money there to buy cars, but it's not there. And so we don't have unpleasant surprises. What else? Today is Giving Tuesday. And so if you're planning on giving to something, I would just like to remind you that there's many local organizations that are very worthy, whether it's the Boys and Girls Club, some of our youth sports organizations, senior organizations, our homeless services. There are a lot of really good organizations in Costa Mesa. So if you're looking for your end of the year giving, think about spending locally. And also along those lines, there will be a blood drive on December 23rd. So try to keep yourself healthy and unpolluted by too much celebration so that you can go give blood on December 23, because this time of the year, the blood banks get kind of low. So I would encourage folks to do that. You'll get a little gold pin when you hit a gallon mark, or maybe it's 10 pints. I don't know. Anyway. What? Not at one time. You go several times before. And yeah, that's true. And then you're totally drained. And the zombies, walking zombies. I guess I was going to talk about the ride, but I think I'll stop while I'm ahead.
Thank you. All right. Councilmember Reynolds.
All right. I want to start as well sharing my gratitude for the work of our police department, dispatch team, and our school officials at Estancia and across the Newport Mesa district in addressing the scare that we dealt with this morning. I want to thank Captain Glass for, within minutes, answering my text, I think past midnight last night when I found out what was going on. So really both thankful and impressed with the professionalism, I think I've mentioned this before, of our department in quickly taking action, resolving a situation, but throughout all of that, keeping the public informed as much as possible and really managing the sort of inevitable panic going throughout our community. I did, because Estancia is home, it really hit home, the idea that this could this threat could be real, and had to swing by campus and just thank the folks who were there working on the issue, and want to share that the principal at Estancia was very, very grateful and appreciative of the work, and again, not just resolving the situation, but also having staff on site who were there specifically to help manage sort of the public relations piece and help deal with the softer side of the issue. So thank you. I'm really glad we had no issues at the end of the day. I want to thank our shelter team too, our outreach and operations team. That our shelter continues to work. We continue to hear really positive feedback. I serve as our liaison on our shelter advisory committee, which has representatives from our residential community and our business community. We check in every month and talk about how are things going, and we continue to get positive response from the community. We know our shelter is working with a number of people that are continually housed through that process, but it's also working in that the neighborhood around the shelter really appreciates that it's there. It's not just not making a negative impact, it's making a really positive impact in that neighborhood. So thank you to everyone who's working on that team and to the members, the volunteer members of our advisory committee. I want to thank our parks and arts and community services chair, Jim Erickson, for pushing really hard to bring the cyclocross event, the Turkey Trot cyclocross event, back to Costa Mesa. This was an older tradition that had stalled for a while, and that organization had a great time and wants to come back. They're hoping that this can be an annual event in Costa Mesa. I didn't know what cyclocross was. It was really neat to see. We had first-time racers and professionals. I mean, these are Olympic-level athletes coming to Costa Mesa. Folks I talked to were from Santa Monica, Riverside, Rancho Cucamonga, San Diego. These are people with multi-thousand-dollar bikes coming to Costa Mesa, spending their day in Costa Mesa, and who promised to buy their dinner in Costa Mesa before they left. So, really exciting event that I hope becomes an annual Thanksgiving tradition. You heard lots of events coming up over the holidays. There are quite a few free events too, which I always appreciate. So I encourage everyone to follow the city website, city news, city on social media, and also the Segerstrom Performing Arts Center. They have quite a few musical events that are, again, free to the public at their Argyros Plaza. So follow that. And encourage folks, as we heard from one of the public speakers, to really think, especially this holiday season, about being kind to everyone. It is really amazing, the power of a smile. So let's try to smile more at each other and at strangers. Let's try to pray for each other, and want to encourage everyone to pray for Councilmember Mansour's family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chavez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I think that the theme today for me is gratefulness. First and foremost, as echoed by members and Councilmember Erdy, very grateful for our police department for those for addressing our threats we had to our local school. It's terrifying getting those texts in the middle of the night from your teachers and friends, and it was very comforting knowing that when I did reach out to members of the school board and members of the police department, there was already a plan in motion and they were taking care of it. It's in times like these when we're especially grateful for what they do for us and keeping us safe. And as Councilmember Reynolds says, it does hit home that this can happen anywhere, and it's always something in the back of our heads. So thank you for our department for being there for us today. Had a very humbling experience as well with Councilmember Marr and Mayor Pro Tem Stevens at the shelter last week. Seeing our residents who are at the shelter and hearing their stories, seeing how they've overcome their challenges to be at the shelter, really put a perspective of what good we're doing by having one in our community. We've housed 32 people already. More people, 34 now. See, it always changes, always gets bigger and better. And it's really nice seeing people that go in there optimistically, having a game plan in mind. And that's how it should be. It's a housing first problem. They're homeless. They need a home. That's what it is. So we're grateful for Mercy House and our staff for working with our residents to get them a housing plan and moving forward with that. Alongside gratefulness, I also want to thank our Parks, Arts, and Community Service Commission. My good friend Cassius Rutherford is on the commission, and he's been really fighting for a few things that I mentioned to him that changed in Costa Mesa when I was growing up here, mainly regarding certain rules about X number of people being at a park without a permit. It's my understanding that there's been no citations from any officer or park rangers regarding people being more than 10 in a park. But seeing as we're not citing people for this rule, I would like to see council bring up to the dais and really get rid of it or change it to be more accordingly, because if we're not enforcing a rule, then maybe it's obsolete and time to get rid of it on the books. And finally, I don't share autism with my family, but I do feel a point to share this. So this past weekend, my little cousin, Fernando Perez, and his school, Sunny Hills in Fullerton, won CIF championship for football, Division 8. It was really fun seeing the entire city rally around the team and then win it, and I'm really proud of him. So I just want to say thank you, Fernie, for this past 15 weeks of football, and very proud of you and your high school team. So thank you, guys.
They beat my alma mater.
So, yes, we made it through Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas to everyone. Snoopy House starts on December 13th, and if you want to see an extra special Santa Claus, come on December 21st. As many have said, thank you, Captain Glass and the entire police department for the work you did on the threat today, and also thank you to the school district for working with our police department. I thought it seemed to be very seamless, and I was very proud of the collaboration and what you folks were able to accomplish today. As Council members Chavez and Marr mentioned, we did go to the shelter for the Thanksgiving dinner, and it was very interesting to talk to the clients, and I came away with some of the same impressions that they're working very hard to on their housing plan, and now I believe there's 35 folks that have been housed. I talked to a gentleman who was the 34th, and some of them, all of them, have had some very rough circumstances and trauma in their life. And I mean, one gentleman I was talking to had been on the streets living rough sleeping. I mean, sleeping on concrete for 8 years. And I just want you to imagine how your life would be and what you'd look like if you did that for 8 days. So to have a positive outlook and working with our caseworkers, which are phenomenal there, it was really quite something to see. On a bit of a lighter note, I've been noticing that there have been a lot of restaurants that are either opening or are about ready to open in our community. And as I've said, in the county of Orange, we have 17 of the top 50 restaurants. I'm very proud of that. I think the community should be proud of that. And not to diminish any of the existing restaurants, but I want to call out some of the ones that are opening up. Sevilla at the Triangle. And just yesterday, I was at a community event for the Triangle, and I want to say that Tyler Mateen is working very hard to work on the Triangle and make that a more vibrant place. Hennessy's right over there took over Roma Kachina's place, so it's going to be nice to see that there, good old-fashioned Irish bar. You can't have enough of them. Nothing wrong with the Harp. You cannot have enough good old Irish bars. Buffalo Wild Wings is opening up, and then the other one is Chef Santana is opening up a new concept called The Hall, which is where the Claim Jumper and Z Tejas used to be at South Coast Plaza, and full disclosure, my son works there, so that's even better. Regarding the police budgeting issue, there are some people that can't come to every single meeting or watch every single meeting, but just to recap that, what occurred there was we did get some feedback from our police chief before the last budgetary cycle. Our budget has to be approved at the end of June. Most of the feedback and discussion happened in late May and June. The council decided to take a pause and relook at those budgetary issues after the first quarter. That's exactly what we did. Captain Glass, working with our finance director, put together a schedule of phasing in a different way of funding some of the requests and phasing them in after 3 years. And that program was put in place at the last council meeting. So I think we will be able to achieve a good result on that issue. So anyway, I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that the police department is now getting what they need to serve us, and it was a collaborative effort with the police department. I appreciate the work that you did, Captain Glass.
Thank you. Okay, well, it's been a busy week. I attended with Councilmember Reynolds the Small Business Association Shop Small Saturday at the Orange County Marketplace on Saturday. And there were, I think it was 45 new entrepreneurs who launched their businesses that day. It was great to see them there, and we got to tour around and introduce, and they were all introduced to us. There was a representative from the governor's office, and the Small Business Association is doing a lot of work with our local communities to promote small business. Also, I wanted to let people know about December 14th. It's a sad day, but the anniversary of Sandy Hook. At 2 p.m., there will be, in conjunction with Moms Demand Action at Davis School, National Gun Violence Awareness Vigil there. And then also, as it relates to our police department, I had the privilege of attending the Police Explorers banquet this weekend. And it was incredible. The program has grown so much. We have students there. I see tonight we have students in the house from Costa Mesa High School, from Newport Harbor High School. Both schools were represented at the Explorers Banquet, as well as Early College High School, Estancia High School, and Corona Del Mar High School, as well as Golden West and Coastline Community College. What a great program. Many of the students there gave comments about what the program meant to them, and what was meaningful that I took away from it is that almost everyone talked about the bond, the familiality, the collegiality, the collaboration that they felt with their teams. And I loved that there were so many young women that were in the Explorers program. In fact, the captain, the new captain, is a young woman. I believe she attended Estancia High School, if I recall. I'm not sure. Could be Costa Mesa. I don't know. One of those two schools. But great to see those students. And for any students who would like to participate in the Explorers program, highly encourage you to look into it. It's a great way to learn about law enforcement, determine whether that's a path for you, including CSI and other kinds of activities. And so we're really grateful. And we've actually hired 2 of the Explorers. They had to resign their post because now they're working for the city of Costa Mesa. So it's a great way to have a path into our police department. So thank everybody. I know our police officers do a lot of hard work to keep that program going. And I also would like to invite Captain Glass up to the podium so that he can share a little bit about the collaboration. I echo my fellow council members with regard to the excellent police work and the excellent teamwork that I think was displayed with regard to this incident. And then I'd also like to talk to you about what no one really seems to be talking about, and how can we address what can we do, we collectively as a community, to address what would cause this in the first place, and how do we deal with students who are struggling?
I'll take those in a couple parts,
Okay.
systematically. First, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I'd like to first start off by saying thank you for the support and the comments you've given from yourselves, city manager, over last night's event that carried on to this morning is greatly appreciated and been shared with the department, the support we were getting. As you all know, based on the press release and the information that was provided, last night we started receiving information of some postings that were put on social media, making threats towards Estancia High School specifically. Upon receiving some of that information, we already had patrol responding out to who we wanted to identify as our primary source of the information so we could start gathering that. I had been in contact with our detective bureau who oversees gangs, SROs, and primary investigations, and wanted to make sure that they were aware of this so we could start getting the staffing and preparing for what needs to be done for the follow-up after receiving this information. And our department came together like it always does, stands up to these challenges, perseveres, and takes care of business. And that's what occurred last night early on and throughout this morning to get the result that we had. As the investigators from gangs, SROs, and detectives started to get the intel, We started to network and communicate with or Newport Mesa Unified School District. And again, any type of situation like this, it's a collaboration. Their jurisdiction, the schools and responsibilities, we cannot do it alone. And so these collaborations always work well, and we do it with all our partners out there, depending on the situation, jurisdiction, and where the incident is occurring. So that was a great collaboration at first, so they could aware and make determinations on direction and issues they need to address as a school district, notification to the parents, and what was going to happen in the school. As we continue tonight, detectives, SROs, and gangs worked on it diligently to identify the individuals involved and responsible for the actual postings. And then us coordinating with Newport Mesa Unified School District again in the morning to provide them the information that we had so they can make a sound decision, give them our assessment of the threat, if it's credible. In all these types of situations, we treat as credible. We have to, for the safety of the community, the public, and make sure that we're doing our due diligence, and we take those actions until we know and we can validate if it is or not. And that was this case. Again, Newport Mesa Unified School District put out a notification that we supported, and we were backing them in collaboration the whole time. And then with the results of our detectives doing, again, great work, SROs, gangs, and detectives identifying these two individuals through the night, finding the location and being able to contact the juvenile at her residence and take appropriate action, get a little further intel that led us to the second individual and bring both of those into custody without incident, and so we could bring a sense of calm and safety to the community. And with that, as that's progressing and making sure the public as well as council and all are notified of the situation, it's preparing for the environment and what people are going to see and be worried about going into the morning. So we had a strong police presence, as we will continue throughout this week, just to provide that sense of peace and know that we are there for them, even though we know we have the two individuals and there is no threat to the community and to the school district.
Thank you, and thank you so much also for keeping all of us very promptly and timely informed about things, because in this day and age where social media sort of takes over, it's hard to stay on top of it. And so I really appreciate the prompt response and really how everyone handled the situation. I think was really great, showing of teamwork. So thank you so much.
No, welcome. We have a top caliber law enforcement agency.
Agree. My final comment is, I've had a chance over the last couple of weeks to meet with and talk to a lot of law enforcement across the state of California. And sadly, many times the question that they ask me is, what would you do when your community is pushing back against your police department? And I said, well, we don't have that experience here. Our community embraces and supports our police department. And I wish that were the case throughout, the country. So thank you very much for being a great community partner, and thank the rest of our officers in the department for their partnership with our community that make people feel comfortable and safe here in Costa Mesa.
We'll always share that.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move to City Manager Report. Ms. Farrell Harrison?
Thank you and good evening, everyone. I just wanted to echo Captain Glass before you leave. I see you sitting down, okay. Just wanted to also echo those sentiments of what an incredible job the entire PD staff did today, SRO gangs, everyone, just in terms of rallying together, working with the school district, keeping us informed while still investigating the threat. You were managing many different stakeholder groups at the same time, and so you did an incredible job. We couldn't be more proud of you, and just wanted to say great work. Now, unfortunately, the incident today is a reminder that this is a new. This is a situation that has happened in several school districts. In fact, there were 3 of us staff members today who were talking about the incident today and have children in different school districts, 3 different school districts outside of Newport Mesa, and we have experienced similar incidents. And so it is something that is happening with greater frequency. And to your question, Mayor Foley, that it's something for all of us to think about. And working with, and I know that this came up in public comment too, working with our teenagers, working with our youth, and making sure that we have the resources to reach out and to identify. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize our residents and our community, because it was through them that we initially found out about these postings. And so we can't stress enough how important it is, if you see something, to say something. For you students that are here this evening, don't think that you're being dramatic, that you're overreacting. If you see something that's of concern to you, mention it to your parents. And I'm so happy that parents reached out to us to let us know that there could be a potential threat, which then led to the investigation and then ultimately some folks being in custody. And so just wanted to thank our residents and the community, students, everyone for a job really well done. It takes a village to keep our children safe, and today was a great example of the amazing village that we have here in Costa Mesa. So just very thankful about that. I had a couple of other updates. One is, you may have seen this in the media, but we have the pleasure of having Susan Price, who's the Director of Care Coordination for the County of Orange, accepting our offer to her to be our next Assistant City Manager. And so we're incredibly thrilled about that. As many of you may know, she is often referred to by the media as the homeless czar in Orange County because of the work that she's done, which is extraordinary here within the county to address this issue and to deal with a lot of the complexity and difficulty in terms of addressing the issues related to homelessness, our homeless families, homeless adults, children, individuals, veterans, and she's actually the pioneer of a lot of the programs that have been established and a lot of the work that the county is doing with its shelter and its services and the distribution of funding to cities that are struggling with this issue. And so we're really thankful that Susan has agreed to join the team. She'll be joining us on January 6th. And she, just to tell you a little bit about the search process, she rose to the top of the list. There were 67 candidates that were vying to be our next Assistant City Manager, and she rose to the top. And she's someone that I've worked with personally before and is just a stellar individual. Frank Kim, who is the CEO of Orange County, could not say enough about her and how lucky we are to have her. And I was actually surprised that he took my call today. I thought maybe he'll never speak to me again, but he's thrilled for her. It's a great opportunity for her, and it's a great win for us. And so just wanted to welcome Susan, and we're very excited about her starting on January 6th. And then I also wanted to echo the sentiments regarding the great work that we're doing at our Costa Mesa Bridge Shelter for the Homeless. I had the fortune of also being there for our first annual Thanksgiving dinner for our clients, and it was a great experience for me to get to meet more people individually and hear about the work that we're doing at the shelter and to ask pointed questions about, are we doing all the right things and are you getting the services that you feel that you need? And we received incredibly positive feedback. Most people will take the opportunity to complain about what's not right with our city or with anything. And in this case, they were very thankful and said everything that we were doing right. And so I'm glad that the work that we're doing at the shelter is changing lives, and we are up to 34 people being housed. We're really excited about that, and we were able to talk to someone who was just going to be housed that following week and was very excited about that. And so I'm glad that I had the chance to be there with my children and my husband and get to meet folks and hear about the great work that we're doing so we can share that with you. And then just had a couple more things. I wanted to thank Bart Mejia. Bart, if you could stand up. He's retiring and has been with the city for 31 years. And so we just wanted to acknowledge you.
Help to build our skate park.
So Bart, thank you for 3 decades of service to the city of Costa Mesa. We're better for the work that you've done. You've been our city engineer for the past 3 years, and I know that you have a very tough job dealing with all the challenges and with our infrastructure and all of the important work that you do to make sure that our streets are safe and that our public infrastructure which is worth hundreds of millions of dollars is being properly maintained. And so thank you for the work that you've done. We wish you luck in your retirement, and we're very thankful for all of your service. And then really last but least, parking RFP update. I know that parking is an issue that comes up frequently. We will be reporting to on a regular basis as it relates to this topic. We have received, today is the day that we received proposals from different consultants that are willing to help the city with the parking study. And so our residential parking permit program right now is temporarily on hold until we select a consultant, an expert that can help us develop some short and long-term solutions, bring some best practices, particularly to deal with our citywide congestion issues as it relates to parking. And so we received a lot of interest. We did, some vendors did ask for a 2-week extension, which we did provide, and today was the final deadline for the respondents. And so we'll be bringing a contract to the council if it reaches that authority level shortly, well, hopefully next month. So that's all.
All right, thank you. City Attorney Barlow?
Yes, just very briefly, a member of the public, and I think it was Ms. Martin, raised at the prior council meeting a question about publications that appear in our lobby. We cannot ban one publication while accepting others. We must maintain a neutral rule, or we may not have publications in our lobby. So that was the answer to the question. I know the Mayor Pro Tem indicated that he was sure I would look into it, and Ms. Green and I talked about it. It's actually something that has been raised in the past. So unfortunately, the remedy for that, I suppose, is to not read the ones that are unduly provocative in your mind.
Or provide some other ones.
Or provide others, yes. And then just one other quick point, and it relates to the parking comment that the city manager just made. I'm afraid I have bad news on that score. Because of a recent law passed by the state legislature, there will be allowed conversions of existing garages to ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So there's going to be less parking, not more, coming soon. We will be bringing to the council an urgency ordinance at your next meeting to allow us to retain at least the minimum amount of control that the state has left for us on that score. So we'll give you a summary of that bill when we bring that urgency ordinance forward.
All right, thank you. At this time is the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for discussion. I'll be abstaining on consent calendar item number 3, the warrant register, payments to West Coast Arborists, Inc., as I have received contributions over $250 to my Senate campaign. Madam Clerk, does the council or public have any items that they have requested to be pulled?
Yes, the public request, item number 3, the warrant register.
Okay, well,
Move the balance.
is there a motion? Okay, call for the question.
Councilmember Sharp, please.
There you go.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, at this time, I will step out and we will discuss item number 3.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Pro Tem?
A member of the public requested this item be pulled.
So can you please read the item?
Yes, the item is the warrant register.
Okay,
Warrant resolution number 2631.
we'll open it up for very relevant, on-point public comments.
Very relevant, on point. So first page, okay, last night, this is directly related to page number 1 and page number 1 again. There's 2 page number 1s. Okay. Last night at 5 o'clock, I was invited to the Starbucks over here on Newport.
Excuse me.
And
Excuse
it's
me
about the money.
I know, but just excuse me for a second. I just want to
Okay.
make sure. I don't see that your time is running.
Oh, good.
Is it running?
No, I'll
Is
make
it
it
running?
fast.
3 minutes, right? Okay, sorry. Start
That's okay.
over.
Okay, last night, blah, blah, blah. Okay, last night, Newport and And right over here in Fair Drive, where it turns into Delmar, there's a Circle K. So I'm meeting a nice young friend for coffee. So I pull up, it's about 5 o'clock, and here comes the ambulance and the fire truck. And it sure looked like an overdose to me, but I don't know the exact logistics. So I watched for a minute, and I just thought, oh, how sad. And then you look here, Care Ambulance, that's, and you know, this is every 2 weeks, folks. This is $154,000. I'm not even talking about the paramedic supplies and Narcan and all that. I couldn't find that on here this time. Okay, so then I go into the Starbucks to have coffee with this nice young person, and there's 3 young guys, one walking in with his black plastic garbage bag and his rolled suitcase, and the other guy, they all had just, obviously, they looked like they'd just been curbed from a sober living house. And they were sitting there talking about who was going to pick them up and where they were going to go. And I was supposed to go to a meeting, so I didn't stay to see who picked who up. But they did get up, and one of them said, the guy behind the counter says, "Where are you from?" And he says, "Oh, Seattle." So here we go. Page 1, $156,000. This is every 2 weeks, folks. Every 2 weeks, there's about $300,000 on this warrant that involves sober living, litigation, and first responders. And I really wish the city would pay attention. If it bothers people that I bring up the warrant, I want you to pay attention, please, to how much money we are wasting on this boondoggle that was brought to us on purpose by the prior council. I'm sorry, it was brought to us by Scott Baugh and Jim Rinkheimer, and I find it very unusual that some of the people that are getting up and criticizing our majority council now, you never hear them talk about sober living houses, do you? You never hear them talk about sober living houses. If they care about the fire department and the police department, they would be fighting this with everything they have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, so on the warrant, I'll echo the last speaker. On page 1, $156,000 to Jones and Mayers. It's 2 pages long. Obviously, they're not going to tell you how much money is going into each little line item, but substantial amount of money. And then on page 4, you guys, I guess, hired somebody to tell you what to do with the permanent shelter, which when we started this whole thing, you guys were under the gun to get the shelter, which are all very important. Don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing you. I'm just asking, you're throwing money out the window, because to do a great job is a wonderful thing, but at what cost? At what cost? We can't fund half the stuff that you need to fund, but we're throwing millions of dollars at this thing. And Councilperson Reynolds, on the same token, I don't know, and I've said that to a couple of people and brought it forward, but a gentleman that used to live in the jungle, for anybody that doesn't know where that is, that's where all the homeless people live at the riverbed down there, has just moved in 4 doors down from the shelter. Same street, 4 doors down, it would be due north of the shelter. On the same side of the street, there's an older gentleman that lives there. He's commandeered his house. The old man is scared to call Costa Mesa PD because the guy has threatened him. Yet, and the people from the shelter are just going over and getting their stuff. They don't even have to travel anymore. It's like next door. And this is coming to me via somebody that lives on that street. So if you're going to throw a lot of money at something, could we at least police the fact that we're actually helping them and we're not bringing the drug dealers literally next door? Because it's ongoing. It's ongoing. And you guys really ought to look at this and figure out, you know, if you're going to pay their attorneys that much money to fight it in court, why don't we spend a little bit less or give the police department a little bit more so we can get somebody to go and sit in front of that thing and take care of it so it doesn't happen in our city. So the fact that you're spending money frivolously is bad because it's constituents' money as taxpayers. So at least if we can be accountable for the way in which you spend it, that would be really something to give thanks to. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other people that want to speak from the public, so why don't we get a motion on the floor?
Move the balance.
Or move the item?
The item.
Okay, so Chavez, Councilmember Chavez has made the motion. It's been seconded by Councilmember Guinness. Why don't we vote on this? Let's
I
call
have
for.
one thing-
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. First off, I would like to point out that not all of our ambulance costs are due to sober living. I personally have gained a greater appreciation in recent weeks for our ambulance costs. And I'm grateful that our paramedics are there, and I've seen the fire trucks and our ambulances in my neighborhood. We have a lot of seniors in our community, so those of us who've lived here for a good long time sometimes need that assistance. And also, I would appreciate if the second speaker would get with the police so they could investigate this case of elder abuse together with Adult Protective Services, because we really do want to get on that, because that's really... I do? I'll look them up, because we really do need to investigate this, because that's shameful if that's what's occurring. That's all.
Those are great points. Thank you, Councilmember Guinness. And also, you know, it's the ambulance cost for Care Ambulance also is how we use our transport model, where we generate a lot of revenue, over $3.5 million. So we have a motion on the table. It's been seconded. Does anybody else want to talk? Okay, let's vote.
There we go. Motion carries 5-0-1 with Mayor Foley abstaining and Councilmember Mansour absent.
Okay, let's bring back the mayor, shall we?
Okay. We have one public hearing tonight, one public hearing item. City Clerk, will you please read the title?
Thank you. This is the annual review of the Citywide Traffic Impact Fee Program and presentation by Ms. Rosales, Transportation Services Manager.
Ms. Rosales?
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, I will begin my presentation on the annual review of the Citywide Traffic Impact Fee Program. First, I'd like just to share a brief history of the Traffic Impact Fee Program. The Traffic Impact Fee was first adopted in 1993, and it was adopted at $228 per average daily trip for new developments and change in development. In 1999, an incentive program was established which gave credits, reduced rates for developments with trips for the first 100 trips. So anything under 100 trips was reduced. And that traffic impact fee was $150 per average daily trip at that point in time. In 2002, the fee was increased to $177 per average daily trip. And then in 2005, there was a major update, and the citywide fee went to $181 per average daily trip. In 2018, which was last year, we had a major update. This is based on the general plan update that was adopted in 2016 and a revised fee calculation. And at that point in time, at last year's city council meeting, the traffic impact fee was established at $235 per average daily trip, with up to 10% for signal synchronization projects and up to 5% for active transportation projects. Also, during last year's city council meeting, the previous incentive program with the reduced rates for the first 100 trips was terminated. So the Traffic Impact Fee Ad Hoc Committee meets annually every year to review the traffic impact fee and the calculation. This year, the Ad Hoc Committee met twice in October 2019 As part of the analysis and review of the fee calculation, this included looking at recently completed projects, consideration of active transportation projects, also traffic signal synchronization projects, looking at the current traffic impact fee fund balance, and then also looking at the established range of $176 to $476 per average daily trip, which was part of the major update study conducted last year. Looking at all this and taking into consideration both active transportation projects and looking at the roadway projects, a revised calculation of $228 per average daily trips was calculated, and this is based on a revised list of capital CIP projects as well as the inclusion of active transportation projects. The list of projects is included in your attachments to the staff report. This revised calculation considered the inclusion of active transportation projects, which was recommended by the ad hoc committee. This is because active transportation projects has the potential to reduce vehicular demand and also reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Staff is very comfortable that we can see a 10% reduction in average daily trips with the inclusion of active transportation projects. The fee looks at the build out, so it looks at the build out of trips. It also looks at the build out of the transportation system network, and then adding in active transportation. This would then add in the full, consider the full network at build out, and we feel comfortable with the 10% reduction in these trips to account for this, and also this would also be reflected as part of development projects. This next slide shows the current traffic impact fee fund balance. This balance shows that beginning July 1st, 2018, we had $4,259,000 in the fund, and then now, as of June 30th, 2019, it's currently at $4,551,000. This, over the past year, included revenues, which is the traffic impact fees of $182,000 collected, plus investment earnings of $177,000. The fee fund balance was reviewed by the Traffic Impact Fee Ad Hoc Committee and recommended for approval. Also shown on the slide are current and future appropriations for Measure M2 projects, which show the list at the bottom there. So the Ad Hoc Committee has recommended to adopt the proposed resolution, which includes continuing the traffic impact fee of $235 per average daily trip, which includes the inclusion of active transportation projects, approve allocation of up to 10% of traffic impact fees towards traffic signal synchronization projects, removing the cap, the 5% cap on active transportation projects. So last year was up to 5% towards active transportation projects, but removing that cap to allow for the addition of the active transportation projects that are included in the active transportation plan, and then approving approving 10% reduction in ADT to account for active transportation project benefits that we are comfortable that we will see with the inclusion of active transportation projects, and then approving the annual accounting of the citywide traffic impact fee program.
Okay, Ms. Rosales, I had a question. I just want to make sure the resolution, in the resolution, where is it that it allows us to use the fees for active transportation?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I can answer that question. So the resolution is basically, it references the methodology, the whole schedule of improvements that we have, and that includes all the active transportation projects. So it doesn't explicitly say, this limit or this project. It basically references back to the calculation.
No, I'm talking about the resolution where we're changing the methodology. I just want to make sure it's covered because it doesn't seem to be covered to me. And then, I'm sorry? Well, I looked at that. I don't, yeah, okay. I thought you were saying, yeah. So I just want to make sure that when we're passing the resolution that it actually is intended get to our goal, which is to allow for active transportation projects. So what's the language that you think covers it?
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, on the handwritten page 9, in where it says Section 1, the City Council hereby finds that. If you go to B, it says, the purpose of the traffic impact fee is to fund transportation circulation improvements, including active transportation improvements within the city of Costa Mesa.
So that's sufficient?
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question is that we have a prior resolution that has a cap. This resolution doesn't make reference to the cap. Don't we have to affirmatively remove the cap as part of the resolution in order for that cap to go away if it's in the existing resolution? Ms. Barlow?
Yeah, this resolution effectively replaces the prior one, but if you would prefer, we can certainly add a sentence that makes that clear. I think you could include that in the motion, and that would be fine.
Okay, when we get to that point. I just want to make sure that we don't have a situation where there's a part of it that isn't changed.
Understood.
People think that it still applies. Okay, that's all I had. Councilmember Guinness?
I have several questions. When the whole model is put together, we use standardized rates from mostly Institute of Traffic Engineers and other data. And of the data available for similar uses, do we know to what extent active transportation improvements may have been available in the area where the data was collected? So do the rates already reflect some degree of active transportation in the area, or is the data so opaque you wouldn't really know?
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, the data you would not know from based on the ITE trip generation data.
So while the ITE data may reflect basically no active transportation in an area, it may reflect some, but we don't really know. To clarify?
That's correct.
Okay. And we're looking at a 10% reduction. Do we have areas where that seems really ambitious? Do we know of areas where that amount or greater has been achieved?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I can answer that. Yeah, there are many areas in the country where it's a lot more. Cities like Portland has significantly lot more active transportation percentage. Costa Mesa is on, even though it may feel, high, it's only 3% compared to the rest of the county, which is at 2%. So I think we have a long ways to go to get to a higher number. And I think the plan that's proposed, which is very comprehensive, if you look at the active transportation network that's proposed, as well as all the goals that are included, it's very comprehensive, and I think we can definitely reach that milestone, and I think we can exceed that, but we want to be on a comfortable range.
And then should we achieve that 10% reduction, do we believe it will reduce the need for other circulation improvements? For example, if we have more people riding bicycles in areas that are already at level of service A, what about the areas that are at level of service E and F? Will that possibly be alleviated, or are they just still going to be just as bad? Because I'll tell you, if I had a choice, I'm not going to ride my bike on Harbor Boulevard. Although
Yes.
there's a nice bike trail, so I guess I would. And I do.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Guinness, yeah, there is even a small change in mode shift has a big benefit in terms of reducing delays at intersections. So it could be in many ways. It could be bicycling. It could be walking too. For example, when we did the sidewalks on Nutmeg, that kind of encourages more people to walk to Target, for example. So there are other benefits like that can be achieved by walking as well as biking. So I think there are it'll reduce level of service impacts.
I do have to say that sidewalk on Nutmeg, many people have commented on what a difference it makes when they want to go to Starbucks, when they want to go to Target, to Sprouts or whatever. It really does make a difference, and it's not that big of a piece of sidewalk.
Exactly.
And then just to clarify, at the bottom of page 4 and 5, we basically talk about the 10% reduction and so forth. 4 and 5 of the resolution, and it's section 2A and A, B, and C, and it's page 10, 11 of the staff report. When you talk about getting a 10% credit for active transportation improvements, is the intent to be that it operates similar to master plan improvements? For example, if an applicant is going to construct a master plan improvement, we give them credit against their trip fees. Whereas if they just build something else, like a turn pocket just for their project, they don't get any credit, right?
That's correct.
And so the intention here is that the fees would go towards elements that are in our adopted active transportation planning, not just whatever they feel like doing.
That's exactly right. So the things that they do are over and above the fees that they pay. So, we have projects that are coming down the pipeline. We ask them to provide a bike trail through their project. That will be required on top of paying this fee.
So if say, Section A were to be revised, I'm not making a motion because I know we haven't had a public hearing, but if Section A were to be revised to say staff may provide a 10% reduction in ADT development trips for active transportation benefits consistent with the city's adoptive active transportation planning, would that be consistent with the intent?
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Stevens?
Just a couple of real basic questions that I think I know the answer to, but even though I've sat through these meetings, I'm not sure. Who pays these fees?
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens, the developer pays the fees.
What type of developer?
It could be for any development project that adds trips to the system.
Okay. And then for what period of time do they pay the fees? Do they pay them, at once, or do they pay them over time? And if they pay them over time, how many years do they pay the fees?
It's typically a one-time fee at the very beginning of when they get occupancy or the building permit. So it's right at the very beginning before they take occupancy of the new, either the new development or the change in use sort of thing.
So, Madam Mayor, just one point. There are instances where a developer may request a payment plan. So when they request that, they go through our finance department and set up a payment plan for the fees.
Okay.
But they have to exceed certain threshold, and the fees, the payment plan, interest, everything is set by the finance director.
Okay, so so then a new developer wants to develop land, and we determine that it's going to increase traffic. Then we look at the extent to which it's going to increase traffic, and whatever the daily trips are, we charge this number one time
Yes.
to the developer, and they pay it either in a lump sum or over time.
That's correct.
Okay, good. Got it. Now, the other thing, too, regarding the page number 17. So we started with the beginning balance in July 1st of 2018 of $4,200,000 and some odd thousand dollars, and then we ended with $4,500,000 and some odd thousand dollars. So we're increasing the balance, but we only spent last year $67,000 roughly. So I mean, how come we have so much money in the fund? So many. Well, I know now we've got active transportation projects, so maybe the fund will go down more quickly. But, it looks on this like we're slowly chipmunking away a lot of money to sit in a fund while we have traffic impacts, and we're not, spending the money as quickly as maybe we could to address the traffic impacts. And we have, what do we have to show for it? A lot of traffic and a lot of money in a fund, right? So that's my impression looking at this. So, why am I wrong, and how's it going to change if I'm right?
So, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Stevens, you're right. The thing is, the projects that we have on the list are very complex projects. They take some time for us to plan for. and implement. And as you can see in the bottom, there's about $1.317 million that's already allocated for projects that we are slowly working our way in implementing them. And again, for example, Newport, it's only for the design portion. It's nothing more than that is allocated. But you're right. As we move forward, there are quite a few projects in the pipeline. We have listed here, like the Merrimack project is going to be under construction in early next year, and so that'll chip away some of the monies. And there are a lot more projects in the pipeline that we'll be using these funds for. About half this money is actually a payment that Home Ranch made for their entire development that's sitting in our account. So even though it feels that we're not using it, it's for future impacts. We have that money in our bank right now.
Future impacts associated specifically with the Home Ranch development?
The development agreement required them to pay their fees for the project that was approved in 2001 in full.
Right.
They paid it, so we have that money also as part of this accounting. We have that money in there too.
Right. It's just, but those monies aren't restricted to pay for projects that pertain to the Home Ranch development.
They're not.
Okay. And so, am I right that by interjecting these projects, the active transportation projects in, which are kind of less complex, we're not building a street, we're doing something that'll allow bikes and walking to be more available, that we could spend the money more rapidly on those types of projects?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes,
All right,
we will.
Thank you.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. I was really happy to hear, Ms. Rosales, you say that staff is confident that we can achieve a 10% reduction in trips through active transportation. I think if that's true, let's hurry up and get some more active transportation done, since we hear a lot of concerns about traffic congestion. And I really appreciate the changes that you're proposing here. I want to understand a little bit better. I think you started to answer this question a bit, but I just want to understand a bit better how we qualify what projects, what proposed projects the developer may do that would earn them this 10% reduction.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Reynolds, it's not the developer doing any projects, it's the contribution that they're making towards the city's active transportation plan that qualifies them. The developer will still be required to do the things that like bike racks and adding improvements within their own development that facilitates active transportation, like building curb ramps and all that stuff that they normally do. On top of it, the fees that they're paying can be used for active transportation citywide. And the benefit of doing active transportation is that it reduces trips. And we're just saying that it reduces trips for everyone, including the developer.
So, okay, maybe, thank you for clarifying this. I think I did not understand. So we say staff may provide a 10% reduction in ADT. So some projects will get the reduction and some won't?
No, that's not right. They're all qualified for the 10% reduction, given that we are contributing towards the active transportation plan.
So everyone's getting the 10% reduction.
That's correct.
Because we can use the money for active transportation.
That's correct.
Okay. We are, I don't know the exact schedule, but I think it's this week, interviewing contractors to develop a pedestrian master plan, which will provide recommendations for walkability improvements in specific areas of the city. I think we go through this process annually that we're going through now. Is the expectation that those recommendations then could also be folded into list of qualifying projects for these funds?
Yes, and actually we already incorporated about $1 million of pedestrian improvements from the master plan into this year's plan also. So we already included.
Oh, good. Okay, I missed that. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, we'll open this item up for public comment. Good evening.
Good evening. The language in the staff report is misleading, and the language in the actual resolution is missing a major component as far as this active transportation person is concerned. I'm reading here in the report, therefore, development projects which include active transportation components would receive a 10% reduction. Am I assuming incorrectly that only developments that include active transportation components will get the 10%? I just heard that wasn't the case, and I'm totally confused. Actually, who decides in the staff group or on the dais which projects will qualify for that 10% reduction? I'm reading also in the staff report in the conclusion, active transportation projects. Is it components or projects? Again, I'm saying the language is a little vague as far as I'm concerned.
Ms. Martin, do you have this list by chance?
No, I don't have that.
Okay.
Also, staff recommends continue a traffic impact fee of $235. Check. That's in the resolution. Approve allocation up to 10% of traffic fees before traffic signal sinks projects. Check. That's in the resolution. Approve a 10% reduction in ADT to account for active transportation benefits. Check. That's in the resolution. I do not see in the resolution remove the 5% cap. I want that in the resolution as specific language. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Robin Leffler, Costa Mesa resident, and I've been trying various ways of getting around this city for maybe 35, 40 years. I rode my bike to Orange Coast College. I rode it for a long time. I'm not really able to ride a bike anymore. So I'm a little bit concerned about several things. I think that a 10% reduction of average daily trips in the calculation to allow for more, so that it will allow for more pedestrian and bicycle projects, but it might not, because there might not be 10% less people that are actually going to be driving their cars. I mean, that's my guess. I think that social engineering from the top down like this seldom works. It feels like a heavy hand trying to change human behavior, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. I'm not saying that it's not well-intentioned, but I think it's heavy and it's difficult to get people to actually change the way that they move around. The developer has to pay, and rightly so, a small amount of what it will actually cost to do the improvements for each one of these average daily trips. But for the road maintenance and the improvements that we really need, there's no magic in the social engineering. It's just not going to happen like that. People aren't going to change that fast. The fastest growing demographic in our city is an older population that drives, and they're probably not at this state going to jump on a bike and learn a new way. Also, what about when it's raining? Are people going to be riding their bikes, skateboarding, riding their scooters, walking? They're probably going to jump in a nice, dry, comfy car. The last few days, it's just not pleasant to ride bikes in the rain. I think that's going to not happen. What do you call it when you don't face and accept reality? Denial. And I think that that's what's going on here. It's just a little case of denial, thinking that things are going to magically change if you reduce these fees by 10%. I don't think that's going to, I think it's just going to take us right out of the realm of reality, like the last few days. Like I said before, it's raining. People aren't going to jump on a bike. People aren't going to change their habits just because you have less trips for the developer, and the developer has to pay for. Same number of cars on the road or more, I bet. And we also need to address parking. Well, these projects are always underparked. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. My name is John Merrill. Those of you who don't know me, I'm actually a licensed California civil engineer and traffic engineer. I also served for 3 years as a member of or former member of the Bikeway and Walkability Committee. You might imagine this issue is a little near and dear to my heart. You know, this is something that I practice. And so I wanted to offer my comments. I could probably go on for well over 3 minutes, but I'm going to try and focus on a few things just to try and focus the effort here. So I want to say thank you to my professional counterparts at the city, Ms. Rosales and Mr. Sethuraman, for helping to put together this project, or this TIF recommendation. I, however, have some differences of opinion on that. So first of all, I'll try and address these as much as I can here. So first of all, I do want to point out that Ms. Rosales is correct. It's not just new developments. It's changes in use of existing developments. What that means is if, say, for instance, somebody wants to convert an industrial site over to like a new commercial type of site, that might be a change in use, and that would require a traffic study. Now, if they are generating fewer than 100 trips, then they're not getting the incentive to do that anymore. And that's a problem. That's a problem that hits a small business. So I'd like you to reconsider that. A couple other things. So I want to talk very briefly on the 10% reduction for ADT. In my professional opinion, that is unattainable. No matter how many active transportation things you throw at it. We are not Portland, all due respect, Mr. Sethuraman. We are a suburban community that is teetering on urban. 10% is way too rosy. I would say at most 2%, because I think we do need to incentivize active transportation, but we're not going to be able to change behavior very easily or quickly. And thirdly, I would like to just point out, Mayor Pro Tem, you had mentioned, why do we have $4 million in the fund? That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. In the cities that I've worked with, these funds tend to just grow and grow, and they'll get maybe one big project and it'll just be there, and then everyone thinks it's just for that project. Well, it's not just for that one project. That can be used for anything that's on the TIF list. So say, for instance, you've got a signal that needs to be put in that maybe is $700,000. Relatively simple project, categorical exemption type of project. You can do that. But what happens is when you put these big projects on, it just sits there. And it gathers and gathers. What I would suggest for next year, if you don't do it this year, is put on smaller projects like signal synchronization. Signal synchronization has one of the best benefit to cost ratios out there. And it's much more effective at reducing climate change and emissions than active transportation. I would suggest actually 50% of your funds should go to signal synchronization projects. Thank you.
So much. Okay, we're going to close public comment, and then I'm going to have Mayor Pro Tem Stevens wanted to give some background on the the ADT committee, the trip fee committee.
Yeah, so we had 2 meetings. I attended both meetings. They were very interesting, and I appreciate all the work that staff did. And there was actually some very vibrant discussion at the meeting. And the discussion at the meeting centered primarily, and Jennifer and Raja, you were both there, so if I say something wrong or if I miss something that's important, you fill it in. But the discussion mostly centered around whether it is appropriate to use traffic impact fees for active transportation projects. And the issue that was discussed extensively was whether or not we needed to establish a greater nexus between active transportation projects and the traffic impacts that are being created by the developments. And therefore, was it appropriate to basically have the developers subsidize the public spending on active transportation projects? And the committee, now I'm a liaison to the committee. John Zick is the liaison from the Planning Commission, and we participated in those meetings, both of us. But the compromise that came out of that was a recommendation by the ad hoc committee, which we don't have an opportunity to vote on, to say, okay, we're going to keep that ad hoc number, $235, but we're going to apply this 10% reduction for a reduction in, traffic associated with these active transportation projects that we're proposing using the money on. And the way I think it's being applied is basically just reducing the traffic impact from fee from $235 per daily trip to $211.50. Historically, and so, let's lay it out there. As to what it is, because there's no qualifications or anything like that. So the fee is $211.50. Last year, when we went through this, for many, many years, the fee was $181. And the ad hoc committee purported that, that was and I think staff did too, we had a range, but they said, yeah, this was very scientific, that the way we did it. And I just thought it would be statistically impossible for us to charge the same fee, 15 years in a row and do a kind of righteous statistical analysis about what we needed. So that's why we picked another number in the range, 235. So I just want to make sure that the council, before we make a motion, before we vote, has the background of how we came to those numbers, how we came to that compromise. Subsequently, after the committee meetings, and one of the things the committee requested was that the city attorney look into this issue of whether or not we have established an appropriate nexus between the developments and the active transportation projects that were being proposed. And according to Mr. Rosales, the city attorney did look into that and established that we had. So the impetus for the 10% being a compromise and a reduction, being that nexus issue, was kind of taken off the table. So that's the background. I just wanted to say my piece so that when a motion comes up, you'll have that background, and we will, people can make motions, do whatever they want to do, but now they know the whole history. Did I get it right, basically?
That's correct.
Okay, Raja, we're all in agreement? Good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is there a motion? Council? We need a motion on the floor first, because I closed the public hearing. So, Councilmember Reynolds?
Let me find the page here. Okay, so I move that we approve staff's recommendation, and then maybe add to section 2C on handwritten page 11, where we say staff may allocate up to 10% of traffic impact fees towards traffic signal synchronization projects. We add to that, there is no cap on funds that can be used for active transportation projects.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Reynolds, did you want to speak to the motion?
Sure. Yeah, I think this is a really good development. There's lots and lots and lots of demonstrations in cities, not just very urban cities, in more suburban cities, that investment in active transportation both saves costs and is successful in getting people out of cars, and improving quality of life, and improving access to jobs, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and that improving economic development. The list goes on. Just want to address a couple of the comments we heard. The goal here we're saying is we think we can achieve 10% reduction in trips, which means 90% of trips are still in cars. I don't think I hear this from time to time that active transportation advocates are trying to get everybody on their bike. That's not that would be great. I'd love for everyone to get on their bike and join me on December 15th for my community bike ride. But it's really to provide a safe way for people who do want to walk and bike and scoot and skate and roll or anything else to be able to do so safely. And there are also people in our community who have no other choice, who don't have the choice to drive. One constituent who I talk to very frequently is partially blind. She's not allowed to drive, and so her only choice to get around the city is walking. So I I want to make it safe for her to be able to walk around the city. And I do think as we age, that's going to be also more and more common. So I think it's reasonable for us to be, not just reasonable, it is the right thing for us to be doing, to be investing in more modes of transportation across our city. How we naturally get around, I think, is walking, right? That's the the way humans naturally move. I think it's much more natural for us to be walking or biking, and the way we have or have not invested in our transportation infrastructure has forced us into vehicles. So I think our current way of getting around is unnatural, and we don't have a lot of choice. So I'm excited about this long list. I'm excited that our list of ATP projects now spans 2 pages in a very small font. Thank you for putting in that $1 million for the coming pedestrian plan improvements. That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Marta, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, all of the things that Councilmember Reynolds just said, absolutely. I mean, this is part of why I ran for office. I think this is an incredibly important thing that we can do for not just us while we're up here, but generations to come in order to make our city more friendly to people who don't necessarily want to get around by cars. And I think as you look towards, you mentioned greenhouse gas emissions, as we look to be a more sustainable city, to really embrace all the things that the 21st century brings in terms of technology, in terms of how you can get around, this is something we need to do in order for our future to be sustainable. I also think it's interesting when we looked at the budget and we were trying to carve out, $10,000 we could spend here and enough money we could get the Merrimack Bikeway done, and all of these projects we were looking at, and I think we kept looking at that $4 million sitting there and saying, can't we use a little bit of it, like just a little bit, Raja? And we kept getting told no. So this is our opportunity to make that kind of change, and so yes, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Guinness.
Questions first. Where did the 10% come from? Oops, I'm sorry. No, I'm not supposed to do that. When the committee had their discussion, where did the 10% come from? Was it based on something that somebody read? Did it just sound good? Did somebody pull it out of thin air? I was going to say it someplace else, but where did the 10% come from?
You have to, here. Oh, I gave you your microphone. Okay.
Okay. From my recollection, it was just purely a compromise. It was I don't remember there being any science to it. That was the compromise that, remember, it was not a foregone conclusion with the committee that that they would recommend that active transportation projects would qualify for traffic impact fees. So I remember it being a kind of a compromise figure. I mean, do you guys have a different recollection?
Madam Mayor, it was a compromise in the sense that the committee wanted to see how contributing towards active transportation by developers, how does that benefit them in a way? And it is by reducing vehicle trips. And they wanted to see that reduction applied to them also. And when we came up with that 10% is actually, when I looked at, statistics, even, you can look up League of Bicycles, they said, examples of Portland or Minneapolis, I mean, these are places that are really cold and people are biking there. And over the last 10, 15 years, they saw change of going from a 1%, 1.5% bicycle to 6% bicycle. So it's just one component of the active transportation, and you got the walking component too. So there are a lot more people who would be more convenient to walk now to places, especially short trips. And so there will be a change, but again, that change happens over time. And when we look at the fee program, when you look at the projects in the fee program, and also the development, it's all based on build out. So you're not saying this is going to happen next year, but this is when we build the whole network and when we go through the whole development of the city, that's what we want to get to. I think it's aspirational goal, and I think it's definitely doable.
Okay. Can you got to ask for your microphone again? There you go.
Okay. On page 4 of the staff report, there's a discussion of the 10%, and then it says, therefore, development projects which include active transportation components would receive a 10% reduction in their ADT estimated trips for associated traffic impact fees. And likewise, section A at the bottom of page 10, it was, staff may provide a 10% reduction in ADT development trips for active transportation benefits, with the base fee being $235. So the implication there, and which I would believe most members of the public would infer, would be if the developer puts in some active transportation improvements, they're going to get a credit towards their trip fee, which I think is perfectly reasonable. But now I'm hearing that basically we're reducing the trip fee to $211 across the board, and we're not going to actually get any more money for active transportation unless it comes out of the amount of money that we were going to be using for car improvements anyway, or vehicular improvements anyway. Is that? Which is it? Because if it's $235 with credit for active transportation, I think that's a great idea. But if we're just cutting fees across the board, I don't see the incentive to put in active transportation. But anyway, clarify which one is it? We're cutting fees across the board, or we're just giving credit for active transportation improvements?
So, Madam Mayor, I think definitely the page 4, that should be crossed out. It's all projects that are reviewed in the future or after the council approval, if it's approved, will be eligible for a 10% reduction in their ADT, because we are going to use that fees now for active transportation projects citywide.
Well, then why don't we just be honest about it and say we're cutting the fee to $211? It seems very, very misleading for members of the public, as well as a council member who read that thinking that people would get credit for their active transportation improvements.
That's how I understood it as well.
So,
that is how I understood it.
So, Madam Mayor, on that note, the way we calculate traffic impact fees right now, we calculate the ADT based on a trip rate that does not have that ATP benefits. So we calculate the fees based on pretty much an auto type of usage completely.
Assuming that the ITE rates do not include active transportation, which we don't really know one way or the other.
We kind of, I mean, this is something that we know. The rate for single family is 10 trips per household, which is pretty much vehicle trips, and that's kind of how it has been. It's like that's what we use, and the benefit of active transportation is not factored in that one. To get that benefit factored in is a 10% reduction. It's because we're calculating still our trip fees based on vehicle trips, and we want to show the benefit of that reduction in trips. That's the only way to do it.
Okay, Councilmember Guinness, can I interject for a moment?
Sure,
Do you mind?
because I think that's all I have for now, because I'm pondering, because I had a different understanding based on the clear language of the staff report and of the resolution, and I don't know that I'm prepared to, anyway.
Yeah, so I actually agree with Councilmember Guinness, and after our meeting, my understanding was completely different than what I'm hearing tonight. So my understanding at the time of our meeting yesterday was that it was how it's being explained, that the 10% reduction would be provided to the developer who builds in active transportation above and beyond the requirements. That's how I understood that this would apply. So let me ask the question a different way. If we want it to be that, is there anything unlawful about that, Ms. Barlow? Can we just change that in the motion right now?
There's nothing unlawful about doing that.
Okay. So would the maker of the motion be willing to change the motion so that it is a 10% reduction as a credit for those who provide active transportation into their projects, and all other parts of your motion to remain the same? Because right now we're just giving a 10% across the board for no good reason. And I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Stevens and Councilmember Guinness, then why don't we just call it $211? It's kind of it's a facade. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think we should definitely have that discussion. I'd like to hear, I think Mayor Pro Tem Stevens was describing the kind of reason there was this sequence of setting 235 and then dropping it down with the inclusion of the ATP. So I'd like to hear your feedback on that based on your committee discussion. And then I'd like to hear Mr. Sethuraman's or Ms. Rosales' description of then how would we qualify what would achieve that 10% reduction.
Okay, I think what
Because above and beyond,
Pro
is
Tem
that-
Stevens said is that they didn't want to give a reduction.
No, they didn't want.
They didn't want to give credit for
They
active
didn't.
transportation.
There was quite a bit of pushback from particular members of the committee to use any of this money on active transportation projects, and so in order to get them to a point where they were willing to make that recommendation, and you got to put it in context. I mean, the people on the committee are developers, okay, and so they were saying, well, why should I pay for these active transportation projects? I didn't create the problem, whatever. They had their arguments, and they questioned whether there was legally a nexus. And that was unresolved. And so they decided it was kind of I'm sorry, I'm going to use this word, a quid pro quo. And so there you have it. And so, and Raja can describe it, the 10% and whatever, but there's really no science to it. It was more a quid pro quo.
Okay, Mr. Sethuraman, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, there are many projects, bigger projects that definitely have active transportation components as part of their project approval. And where we get into an issue is when you have a smaller project. For example, it's a 2-unit development, and they generate 20 trips. There is no real active transportation improvements they build other than they build the 2 homes with the sidewalk.
So they don't get
right?
the 10% reduction.
But we are using their money for active transportation other places in the city. It might help them get to a grocery store better, or it might motivate them to bike to instead of generating 20 trips, maybe they'll be generating 18 trips. So there is a reduction in trips for that development, and that's what we are trying to capture. It's because we are using a trip generation that's purely an auto-based trip generation. And we are using their money to build improvements which potentially will reduce trips for them and for the rest of the city. That's where the 10% reduction comes in. It may be more than 10%, it may be, that's what we are
fiction.
factoring.
I think the problem is it's a fiction. It's not, the committee should just say we want to reduce the trip fee to $211 instead of having this fiction that the 10% is confusing. I agree, it's misleading. So I guess the question is, do we want to reduce the fee or do we want to have a fiction? Because I don't think this 10% argument is logical. It doesn't make any sense. 10% of what? You're just giving a 10% discount to everyone. So then just call it a different number. Councilmember Reynolds?
I just want to confirm what I'm hearing here. So prior to this discussion, this recommendation, the current fee is $235 per ADT. Yeah, okay. And one of the changes that we're talking about is allowing those funds to be used for active transportation projects.
That's correct.
With no cap on the amount of funds that can be used for active transportation projects. And Ms. Barlow, you said we are absolutely legally allowed to do that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm all for.
So my question goes back to maker of the motion agrees. You had one more question that you wanted Mr. Sethuraman to answer, and that is, what would qualify if there was to be a reduction?
Right.
What would be
how would we decide who's earned any reduction?
If it's not an across-the-board 10% reduction, if it's specific to a project that incorporates greater active transportation, for example, How is that determined?
So, Mayor, one thing we can do is if they're doing projects that are not in our plan, then they can get the credit for it. But if what they're implementing is already something that is in the plan, that's calculated as part of the fee program, then they won't get the credit.
Okay. Councilmember Mar.
Okay, so if we
As the seconder to the motion, since this is.
yeah, so if we just reduce it to 211, though, would we have sufficient nexus and sufficient justification to be spending additional funds above the 5% on active transportation?
Can you, I'm sorry, can you restate that question, please?
I think that's really a legal question, and
Yeah.
I think the
Please.
answer is yes.
Yes.
And the reason is, I mean, this.
But can someone restate her question so I
So if we
understand?
so I mean, the point of doing this is to say, hey, we're reducing it, and that allows us to go spend more money on active transportation, right? Like those two things are interlocked.
But we don't have to reduce it.
Well,
to
that's
that.
my question. And so if we just reduce it to 211, can we still go spend whatever we want on active transportation?
We just have less money to spend.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, the intent is to fund the things that are in our active transportation plan. And so if we're just doing it hodgepodge development by development to give that benefit. Now, I mean, we're just talking about two different things now, I guess, is the point.
Yeah, I'm saying if you reduce it to $211, that's less money to spend on all circulation-oriented projects.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I get
matter.
that.
Yeah.
I think where this originated from was this idea that we're improving active transportation around the city, and thus, in order to spend more money out of our traffic impact fee overall on that, we've got to demonstrate that we're now more bikeable by some percentage by spending that money, and then that percentage, what was kicked off of that was what the discount was, right? Like those two things came from each other, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But they're not required. They just came up with that. That was just a compromise. It's not a required legal analysis. That's
Okay.
all I'm saying. That was just a method of justifying it.
Right.
In their minds. That's how I understand it.
So, Mayor, I mean, the thing is, we are doing these active transportation projects for a reason. Right? I mean, there is a reason why we do these projects. Otherwise, if it doesn't reduce any trips, then why go through that exercise of
Yeah, I get
implementing active
that.
transportation projects?
I get that. We're talking about two different things.
So when we proposed it to the development community, what they said is, you're saying you'll reduce trips. How about my trips?
Right.
Won't that get reduced? That's where it came from. So that's where this compromise of 10% came. I mean, it could be.
Well, if
you
they
could-
reduce their trips by 10% by doing active transportation, then we should give them a credit.
So what are we considering doing active transportation for what kind of developments?
So the reason why we think there could be a reduction is if you do not, if you just do improvements in a hodgepodge way, one project does somewhere, you may not see the benefit. But if you do it citywide, the entire plan, the way we proposed, is part of the program, then you'll see the benefit. If you just do one bicycle lane somewhere, that may not see the benefit
No.
as
Look,
much as.
I'm not saying that. Okay. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. What I am suggesting, and I'm asking the maker of the motion to change her motion to reflect, is that we do away with this across the board 10%, and we still use whatever money we want to use to take care of our ATP plan, regardless of whether or not a particular development comes in and wants to do additional active transportation as part of their development and thereby get some kind of a reduction in their fees. So there doesn't need to be a legal connection between 10% across the city and thereby we get 10% less traffic.
My understanding is that's why we couldn't spend more than 5% previously, because we couldn't demonstrate that if we took a developer's money and then we went and spent it on building a bike path, that they would see any benefit from it, and thus there wasn't a nexus between the fees that we were imposing on the developer community and the ways in which we were spending.
I understand that's their argument. That's not a legal requirement. That's all I'm
Well,
trying
that
to
was
say.
the justification for not being able to spend those funds during the budget process.
Right.
So has
That's
our
because that was
has our
our,
opinion changed?
that was our policy. That's why. That was our existing policy.
Our existing policy was based on an analysis of what the government code requires. I think, as I'm listening now to Mr. Setharaman, I think what he's really saying is the fee of $211 is enough. It would be better for us to spend our money doing programmatic things for active transportation, as opposed to telling individual developers to put this, that, or the other in, because that won't have the effect of reducing traffic the same way that what
I'm
he's
not
proposing
saying
is.
that. He's not understanding me. I was never saying that. So I understand that, what you just said, but I wasn't saying that. Okay. Can we just get an up or down on my request? Councilmember Reynolds? Yeah, I just want to know, will you accept the
Yeah, I'm going to throw another nugget out there as I listen to this conversation. So I think I understand. So that if we were to implement all of the projects on this list, our expectation is that we would reduce vehicle trips by 10%. That's what I mean. Okay. What is our estimate of where we are now in terms of trips on foot or on bike?
The only data we have is from prior census, and we have only for the commute trips, because that's what they measured back then, and that's about 2.9% by commute trips by bicycle, which is actually one of the highest in the county. So
the county, right?
The county,
Okay.
yeah. Not the country, county. So that's the only data we have, and we know that there's a lot more opportunity out there.
Yeah. I guess I could go either way. I think giving the discount forces us to move more quickly on ATP because we're expecting to get that 10% reduction. So I feel like we need to prioritize those projects. But it's hard to, I think if we're in the position of just keeping the fee that we have now and acknowledging that we want to be able, there's benefit to using that money, and we're legally allowed to use that money for active transportation projects, we should. So I think I'll support the suggestion that you made, Mayor Foley, to maintain the fee that we have now. So I guess eliminate this 10% reduction in ATP. I think that was the only change that you were suggesting, right? Yep.
Councilmember Mar?
Madam Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of confusion tonight, and I'd like to spend some more time not only looking at what the recommendation actually was from the committee, but talking with Mr. Setharaman and his team, because I would really like to make sure we get this right. So I would recommend that this item be continued so that we can evaluate all the different issues that have come up tonight.
Okay.
That's fair. Can we second Ms. Barlow's motion?
I know. I can't do substitute motions. Can you, I do a substitute motion to continue this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Mayor, just a second. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
One item is the accounting. Can that be approved? I'm not sure when this is going to come back. So if it's not next meeting, I want to make sure that the accounting part's done.
Okay, I'm going to amend my motion to approve the accounting and continue the balance.
Second.
Okay, call for the question.
Councilmember Mar, please.
Stevens.
Yeah, motion carries 6-0.
Phew, okay. And Ms. Barlow, when you are working with staff on this, keep in mind the discussion and the goal.
I absolutely will.
Okay, thanks. Okay. New business item number 1.
This is appointment of city negotiators for the Costa Mesa City Employee Association meet and confer, and authorization to proceed with the financial analysis of the current MOU per the Transparency in Labor Negotiations Current Policy 300-8. Presentation by Ms. Itzia Carvajal, Principal Human Resources Analyst.
I think Ms. Farrell Harrison was going to present. No?
I was just going to turn it over to Itzia.
Okay, fine. Short presentation.
Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council, thank you for your time this evening. The City of Costa Mesa received a request from the Costa Mesa City Employee Association, CMCEA, to discuss the city's current 2-tiered salary and benefit structure. Subsequently, a request was also received to begin discussions regarding a successor MOU, as a current CMCEA MOU is set to expire in June of 2020. The request which you have before you is to designate the lead principal negotiators, Mr. Peter Brown, partner from Lieber Cassidy Whitmore, Ms. Lorianne Farrell Harrison, city manager, and Lance Nakamoto, human resources manager, as is required by the city's Transparency and Labor Negotiations Council Policy 300-8. Staff is available to answer any questions you have on this item this evening. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens? No, you, okay. Okay, seeing no one else, open this item up for public comment. Seeing no one, close the public comment. Council Member Marr?
I'll move to approve the item.
Councilmember Chavez?
Second, it's a good team.
Okay, call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
Oh, you deleted your second?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was an accident.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, council members, if there's anyone who would like to add any other comments, please request in the queue. Oh, thought we were going to get out.
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember McGinnis.
Really fast.
Can I make one quick clarification?
Hold on 1 second, hold on.
On the motion to continue the public hearing, that'll be to the next council meeting,
December 17th.
December 17th, so that we don't have to re-advertise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, just real quick, I realized that I forgot to mention Priceless Pets as a source of donation, a place that you could donate and you could volunteer. And there are other animal rescue organizations and other groups too. Blankets of Love could always use your old towels and blankets. So just remember our little furry friends too. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will add, if anybody has kids' coats, please donate your kids' coats. For the next couple weeks, there's a box for collection in the Costa Mesa Police Department lobby, and we will be donating the coats towards the end of the month to the Boys and Girls Club. Thank you.